The nerd in me, I think. Morning, Amy. Morning, Michael. We have heard from John Gunkel. He's not attending today. He has COVID and is feeling miserable. Um, I can feel for him because I just got over about 2.5 weeks of some sort of a virus. It was not diagnosed as COVID, but I'll swear it was one of the worst colds I've had in years. So if it wasn't COVID, it was borderline. So if you hear me clearing my throat a lot or coughing, it's carryover from that. Donna is. To hear what she's going to say. Um, but Sharon did indicate that she was going to be here today. I have not heard from Brandon. I have not heard from Zach. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that would be everybody else. Okay. Shailene, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. I don't think you've been on your in your job for a year yet, have you? Or it's going to be, yeah. So brand new to our city and brand new to the business unit of sustainability. And I don't know if everyone else has been following, but I am very impressed with all that you have accomplished in the short period of time that you've been here and all that your committee's doing, who is also a very new committee. I remember talking to you briefly at the Piedmont Environmental meeting back in November, and I think that was maybe your first or second month in the job at that time. And I remember talking to you that you had come from, I hope I get this right, UNCG, and you were a professor there, or maybe still am a professor there. But we welcome you to our committee. We want to hear about what you're doing. And as I mentioned, when I first jumped in, we would love to see understand more about what your committee's doing, how they're accomplishing all they're accomplishing, and partner with them, because I think that we have some great overlap in what you're focused on and what our focus is.
Great, thank you. Let's see.
I have your presentation pulled up, Shailene, if you want me to share it, or you can share it, or whatever works best for you.
Let me see. I'm trying to see if I can. All right, let's see. See if this works. Okay. Well, do you see that clearly? Okay.
Yes.
So, yes, I joined in October. I came over from academia. I was working with my class doing a tree canopy study. Doing this for free, why am I not willing to do this as a job? And I went ahead and applied and came over here. So I have a bachelor's in business from UT Austin, and I will say I worked for the bad guys for my first few years out of college, but if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't be here now, because that's where I decided I really wanted to, change the way I wanted. It wasn't just about, making money and doing a job. It was about, moving towards something good. So I left Enron and went and got my master's in anthropology. Worked a lot on women's health issues, and started working with my city on the Parks Board, on the Heritage Foundation, and that led me into urban and regional planning, where I got my PhD. So I still teach at UNCG, one class a semester. And so this semester I taught reading in the environment. In the fall, I'll be teaching an urban ecology design course again. So yeah, I am still out there doing it. And I'll say my first published paper with my PhD actually was on creative financing for bike and pedestrian projects. So it studied things from different types of taxing, from using incremental financing, using a penny tax, sales tax, using and even using crowdfunding. So one of the first things I had to do on coming in, and I think everyone will say that, I've been trying to make some big changes in sustainability. My brother-in-law was on the sustainability committee before I came on, and he had to step down for ethical reasons. He told me not to apply for the job, that I was just going to be frustrated because nothing was going anywhere. So I'm trying to change that and change that view of it as well. I looked at my department's description online and turned to my team members. We have 3. And I said, well, the description leaves 2 out of the 3 of you out. So the first thing we did was we sit down, visioning, bringing together what everyone's working on and what we could be working on, and recreated this vision to use all the 3 E's of sustainability and pull in the strategic plan of the city. So that said, this is kind of my brain cloud of what we look at right now. In sustainability, we have our energy manager, who works on all the electricity in the city. I claim that he probably knows every street light pole there is. He is the one everyone relies on to tell them time of use, of when they're going to run the big equipment at utilities, to when street lights are out or need to be put up. He is coordinating all of our EV infrastructure that's going in. So doing a whole lot there. We are one of the very few cities in the nation to have a food resilience coordinator. To recognize, this is a position since 2020, to recognize that food is a piece of what we need to look at as a city. So she looks at the entire food system. Right now we're doing a big implementation, which I will mention again, on looking at food resilience. We would also hoping to do a very small piloting for composting here in the future. And then Keep Winston-Salem Beautiful, which I consider as my liaison to vegetation management and parks largely. She runs the litter campaign, Adopt a Street, all the Great American Cleanup. She also works on the beautification programs, so flower bed programs that we have in our right-of-way, and we're working to get those to be more native going forward, definitely more perennial. And my food resilience coordinator was running the Bee City program, but that is transitioning over to Keep Winston-Salem Beautiful as it makes a little bit more sense there. Big picture, I'm also working on a sustainable purchasing policy and some waste recycling campaigns, including anti-contamination. This is just sort of the big pieces. My goal really, though, is to work with every single department, because there is no one who is not part of sustainability and shouldn't be moving forward. So we do have city energy goals. If you weren't aware, our goal is to be 100% clean and renewable energy by 2050. We did have a goal of 50% to get there for 2030. The key words here are going to be where feasible, because we have a lot of issues, and I'll don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but the where feasible is key on that. So since I've come in, there's been a lot of exciting things going on. I got lucky to come in right before we had our first install of solar panels. Those are on the Bryce A. Stewart building, so City Hall South. And they got installed in December, but not turned on until May. But you can go on our website and you can see how much they are producing live. In February, we passed a natural landscape ordinance. So this allows residents to plant more natural landscapes in their yards and have it protected from code enforcement coming in and threatening to mow it down. In connection with that, we have a demonstration garden that's just been planted in 2nd Street. There's still no signage, and we have a few things we're correcting there. But that is the goal of making sure that people could go and see what this natural landscape might look like. And we're also working on meadowing. And meadowing is where we find areas that don't have to be mowed all the time. We're working on our first wildflower meadow, which I do think I have another slide on later. In terms of trying to work with planning, I've been to the planning board, much like I came to you, and made some recommendations for our unified development code to be updated. On the EV front, our first EV transit van was purchased and on the road in March. 4 Teslas are actually on the road now. That needs to be updated. You'll probably see marketing put something out about that. And we have 3 Ford Lightnings on order, and they'll be coming in September. So these are just the first of EV purchases. I do believe we have 4 more coming that are currently being bid. So we're making strides there. LED street lights, those have been approved into the budget. We will be working these in 2 sets, so half this year and half next year. And I'll show you what that's going to do for our energy change. And I mentioned several of the others. The last thing I'll say is we're really excited about an industrial steamer. This is going into vegetation management. And it is our pilot. It should cover about 20% of the city and help be able to reduce the use of Roundup. And if that is successful, it will save us $10,000 a year in chemicals and be able to start transitioning us away from Roundup. So our emissions, when you look at it, is largely electricity, and then it's gas and vehicle fuel. When we transition the street lights, that's going to make a huge improvement. Over 8.5% of our citywide electricity will decrease. So it's a huge thing that we will be paying Duke to change this out. Now, not all streetlights in the city are not LED. Some of the oldest lights have been already changed out to LED, but it would take Duke over 15 years to change out all of them in the city. So we pay for the upgrade, and they'll, in the next 2 years, change out all the street lights. We'll start with major thoroughfares, and next year we'll get to the residential. Our hope is that by the time we get to residential, we'll have the best possible options from Duke to be able to move to that people will be happy with. In fuel, we're mainly working on transitioning to EV, our light fleet, so your cars and your trucks. We are currently not pursuing pursuit vehicles, which are our police cars, which is a large amount, both because then you have a more expensive car that's at risk of getting damaged a lot. They also have a take-home policy, which makes it difficult for them to figure out how to get charged when they should be charging at home. We don't have a policy to deal with that yet. We would like to transition some of our refuse and sanitation trucks. We are looking for funding to do one for downtown, but for the larger city, it's more of a problem because the trucks aren't able to go on the route length, and there are 2 to 4 times more expensive than your regular sanitation truck to go electric. Same thing with buses. Electric buses have a major issue on being able to take the length of our current routes, and they take over 8 hours to charge. So it's not like you could get an electric bus, put it on the route, and when it runs out, charge it fast and put it back on. So those are some of the reasons why, that transition to electric is going to take a little more time.
Shailene, can I interrupt for a quick question? I appreciate it. This is really helpful. So if some of these larger, more commercial, as I'm thinking about it, vehicles are going to be difficult, I mean, what's the thought on just all the other little city vehicles you see running around, pickup trucks and sedans and smaller stuff? Is it going to be more an emphasis on getting those? I mean, those are probably not the bigger emitters, but if they are easier to transition, is that the direction the city is trying to go?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right now, we, are trying to do it wherever we can get it within that fits specs and that can get delivered. We've had a lot of backup because a lot of times they put in orders and they weren't coming in. They would wait 6 months and say, sorry, we're canceling your order. So the need for vehicles, we have a backup of vehicles for the last 3 years that we're trying to catch up on. So the reason we have Teslas is because that's who came in for bid and said, we have vehicles and we can get them to you. In other cases, and then in the pursuit vehicles, we are, for example, going after hybrids.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of food deserts in the city, and this is going back to my food resilience piece. Every ward except for the West Ward has some piece of food desert. So this is a key piece of what we work on in the department. And what I wanted to point out in particular is that if you have not taken our survey, if you have not seen it, please take it, and please get one other person to take it. We need to hear from everybody. A lot of people have looked at the survey and said, oh, you don't mean this for me. But if you buy food in the city and you live in the city, I assume you do, we want to hear from you. Where do we need to, and the survey has 3 pieces on it. There's one, a click into piece, but then there's a little tab and you can go over, and there's even a map where you can drop little pinpoints of where you think something needs to be. So if you ever thought there needs to be a grocery store, a farmer's market, a food pantry, whatever it is where you think things are missing, put them on there. Because the more feedback we have, the better we'll be able to plan for the future. So tomorrow night is the last of our in-person resident meetings. So we are also taking this in person. You just have to show up at City Hall at 6 o'clock. There will be a few light refreshments as well. And that's another way to give your opinion. And we will be having one online next week. You do have to pre-register in order to get the link, and that should be on our website. And I want to point out that from our meetings so far, the #1 issue has been transportation, which is not surprising. It is difficult if your grocery stores in these food deserts are more than a mile away, and if you don't have a car. Transportation to get to the grocery store is the #1 issue that's coming back. So we can do all we want in terms of, you know, working with organizations in the city on food scarcity, but people just want to get to the grocery store. So I think that's a key piece. And so even though this is preliminary, I thought I would bring this up to you. We are also a B City USA. And in B City USA, that means that we have a committee. Our sustainability is our B City committee, that we are promoting habitats. We are trying to decrease spraying, such as with the steamer. We are running educational programs. And so those are all things that are part of our B City USA. We also do, you will find B City signs at Bethabara, at Grant Park, at the Quarry, and at Washington Park, as well as some of our flower beds, where we are promoting pollinators. And this isn't just the honeybees, it's actually more local pollinators. So people often think it's the honeybee we're trying to protect. And so we get random calls from people saying, talk to me about having honeybees and hives. And we're like, no, that's not what Bee City is. So it's really about promoting the pollinators. And that is why we went through this natural landscape registration. And when we passed this ordinance, the concern was, one, code enforcement doesn't know plants. And when they go out there, they are not able to tell, you know, are you growing something natural or is this just overgrown grass? So you do a free registration to be protected. You have to have a 5-foot setback from where your natural landscape begins. And that can be something that needs no mow in front of the 5 feet, or it can be a mowed lawn. I'll tell you, that's a picture. I don't live in Winston. That's a picture of my yard, because as we've just setting people up to show, you know, what a setback looks like and where your natural area begins. We do not allow rank 1 invasives. So those are your most invasive plants. So if you have those on your plant list, you're going to be said, no, you've got to change that out. We also don't allow things like poison ivy, because poison ivy is native. And someone did ask me, well, do we allow that? No, we can't allow poison ivy as part of your yard. You get a sign, and the sign is to educate people, because in fact, when you register, it's going on a GIS map, and code enforcement is able to recognize that it's a natural landscape because it's on that. This is a picture of that demonstration garden I told you about. We will be putting in a border at 5 feet, and this is all volunteer run as part of our flower bed program. Audubon gave the money to purchase the plants. And signage will be coming soon. So again, the key is that, you know, trying to get away from conventional landscapes, which are generally, you know, fertilizers, herbicides, needing water, and they're considered ecological dead zones. Sometimes we call them ecological traps, because things might look green, but if they don't have the right things to attract the insects and birds that are native to here, then they're not going to help increase those populations. And we have been at events like Earth Day and said, yeah, you're a Bee City USA? Yeah, I haven't seen any bees. And you know, someone's turned around and asked them, well, what do you have planted in your yard? And they say grass. Like, well, there's a reason why, you know, you haven't seen any bees, because there's no reason for them to be there. So one of the things I think you might be interested in is our first meadow that we're currently working on is in Happy Hill Park. It's between the track and the greenway. It's about 1 acre of land. And so since the spring, we have sprayed the grass, and we'll be spraying it again to kill out all of the turf grasses and invasive weeds. And next February, we will be planting it with a native wildflower mix. So it will only get mowed then once a year, and hopefully be a really pretty ecologically positive piece. And our goal is to grow this, and hopefully this is successful, so that we're planning an adopt-a-meadow kind of idea, that different acres and different parts of the city may be able to be adopted to help pay for it. It's quite expensive for the chemicals to go on it, as well as the seeds. So to get it set up and signed appropriately.
Shailene, real quick on that one, that's an area that's really prone to pretty bad flooding with almost any little bit of rain. Will the meadow thing alleviate any amount of that, like water storage type stuff, or?
Well, kind of two things. One is there are storm drains down there, and they are blocked up. We are trying to see if we can get that fixed. But two, we also have experts who are recommending seed mixes that should be adapted to the water. So although it may not alleviate the water, whenever you plant the right plants in it, you can consider it like a rain garden, and that they're at least cleaning that water out.
Okay. Thank you.
So when I coming over here to bike and ped, to me, everything in bike ped, it equals sustainability. You know, it is reducing, you know, carbon emissions, improving air quality, helping health, it's climate resilience. Building, you know, multi-use paths is hopefully, you know, decreasing road surfaces, increasing green spaces is a key of that. It's known as helping the last mile. So if people take public transportation, how do they get from the end of public transportation home? And bike and pedestrian infrastructure is key in that. So it's really on the United Nations as being one of the main development goals. So to me, this overlap, Carol, as you said, is absolute. And we, as our department, wants to do whatever we can to help promote it. So I'm very thankful that you had me here today. So I thought I would bring up a few pieces of sustainability that maybe is beyond just, you know, having the basic bike ped infrastructure. So like our meadowing, you know, greening the greenways. I know Ben is devoted to this, and unfortunately a lot of our greenways are also where utilities run, and so we can't always have the trees that we want, but we could start to do other things like the meadowing. And as long as we keep a nice mowed edge and hopefully signage to talk about people, that could be something that's very useful. I recently also forwarded him some things about cool pavement. Cool pavement is a particular mix of pavement. It's been used in multiple places, San Antonio, Phoenix, California. They've been working on this. In fact, Phoenix did 100 miles of cool pavement to try to lower temperature. And they found that surface temperature was 10 to 12 degrees lower where cool pavement won. But even under that surface, the soil temperature was also almost 5 degrees lower. So this cool pavement is made where it's somewhat more permeable. So you're also having less stormwater runoff, and they also found it's quieter. It creates a lower tire noise. So I think finding, you know, the right spot for this, you know, in and around our downtown areas with our high urban heat islands, we know in where we don't have a lot of tree cover in Winston-Salem, we are almost 12 degrees higher on average in temperature. So it's a huge urban heat island. And so here we are seeing it can be 12 degrees lower with cool pavement. So to me, I think that would be a really good key piece on helping sustainability in terms of environmental justice and equity as well. This was a neat thing I saw a couple months ago. Here was a combination of essentially Bee City and bikes coming together. In Austria, they had these safe medians where they put pollinators in a box. Then they had their bicycle parking, including an outlet for e-bikes. And they had signage around on what it was as well. Other cities are also doing e-bike incentives. So looking at how people might be able to, we encourage the purchasing of e-bikes to increase who is able to bike around the city, could also be an important initiative that you could look at. I think one of the key pieces when people start to invest in bikes is bike parking, particularly in multifamily housing where, you know, bike parking is often, if it's there, you know, out in the open. And I don't know about you, but when I bought a $700 bike my first time, and I thought, I'm not leaving this bike outside to rust, and you know, or as if you get an e-bike. So I think bike parking is something to keep in mind and keep concerned about, especially I think this is something we could, you know, work with planning on to encourage. It shouldn't just be, it's at some businesses. It should, you know, businesses should all have bike parking, and that might be okay temporary, but thinking about it for housing solutions as well is important. I did want to point this one out because of my research is Denver has been able to do crowd-funded bike lane. So thinking about that, you know, creatively about this infrastructure is also an idea. I am also very passionate about tactical urbanism, and we're going to call it pop-ups as well, because tactical urbanism is where people have essentially shown up and taken over streets and shown how things could be better. Now, when you get the city involved and it becomes allowed and permitted, then we're going to call it a pop-up. And the idea is that in areas where you want to see transformation, you transform it temporarily for a weekend, for a week, or however long you can, and try to show what that change could look like, how it might revitalize an area. Some other things that are kind of broader and pushing out beyond bike ped, because really all public transportation goes back to that sustainability, is, you know, thinking about better routes, you know, but I also think it's about internal support for employees, and it's about inspiring the public to make these changes. And I thought I'd show a few things because to me, we often put up a pole and call it a bus stop, and that makes it cheap to put up bus stops, but it's not what we think of as something that's very friendly for it. On the top, you have a solar bus stop. So this is something where you'd be able to plug in and charge your phone while you wait for the bus while getting shade. And the bottom one is one that was in Budapest, and we had this was about an 18-inch by 18-inch planting box behind that bus stop, growing this entire vine to shade and cool the structure. So kind of a creative way where you might not be able to have a tree to green and cool the area. And, you know,
Shailene,
yeah.
I have a question about, so we've had places in Winston where we've actually had sheltered bus stops that have been removed because, I mean, homeless people are just hanging out there and it becomes their spot. I mean, so it's like, you know, obviously infrastructure is in place and then it gets taken out. I mean, what kind of policy or what's being done to kind of combat that? You know, I mean, I'm trying to be sensitive certainly to people, but you know, I mean, we're talking about putting more of those in instead of a pole, but then there's places where they've been there and then been removed.
I do not know the history of those, and that would be something about me being newer. And you know, it is a difficult conversation to have because there's a right to the city, you know, for everybody. So, but personally, I feel that, you know, by asking people to take the bus, and when the bus might come through every half an hour and we don't have a place to sit down or be sheltered in, that's not very fair or going to be a very good system. You have to create a system where people want to ride it, and you have to create a system where, you know, you and I are willing to get on.
Okay, thank you.
And in roundabouts, I want to say that this is also something in sustainability we want to push and promote, because you have reduced pavement in creating them. By cars not stopping, you have reduced fuel emissions. There's no power usage from the street lights. Pedestrian safety goes way up. And there's a reduced maintenance as well. And if you combine it with, you know, green complain, most cities have found that if you complain, they go down after 60 days, people get used to them. So it's really about change rather than about it being a problematic in the future. And Conway, Arkansas is known for this. In fact, they took out all of their street lights except for maybe one, and they put in 31 roundabouts. So it's a big thing also. So my question is, as I open this for questions, do you want me to leave the slides up? Do you want to look back at anything, or should I stop my share so we can see each other?
Are you able to share or leave your slides for review at a later time, and then pose questions if we have any to you later?
Sure. And Ben has a copy of my slides, so he can definitely share them.
Shailene, there is a question in the chat that asks for a link to the food desert survey. If you could share that in the chat, that would be great.
Absolutely. And I'll also say, if you just put in Winston-Salem food survey, it is the first thing that pops up.
Thank you. And then Latrissa had a question on pop-ups. Are people within the community implemented in the process, and what would look better in their community? Of what would look better in their community? And Latrissa, I can actually answer that. Yes, typically when there is a tactical urbanism or pop-ups, the community is and should be very involved in that.
So we did one in Tallahassee where the university helped out. The city actually engaged a professional to come in and do it, who does it out of Dallas. And they drew bike lanes in, they drew crosswalks in. There was a business that a couple businesses that were empty. They set up a pop-up like music event there. And they held that for a like 3-day weekend.
Thank you.
Shailene, if you want to use another city that is top on roundabouts, it's Carmel, Indiana. Spelled the same way as, oh, never mind. Anyway, Carmel, Indiana has over 100 roundabouts. They have removed all but 1 or 2 stoplights in the entire township. I grew up very close to there. I remember when it was starting to shape up, everyone was many people were upset with the mayor. You're spending too many tax dollars. I don't understand why you're doing this. But now, fast forward another 20 years or so, now that they have them all installed, I think that it is a great solution to all of the 4-way stops and traffic lights that they had in that community before. Thank you so much. I love that you have shared not only what your committee is doing, but ways that we can intersect with one another and to help and support one another. I think from this, one of the things that I take away is maybe we should go back and look at our bicycle or pedestrian. I forget which of those 2 master plans, where it talked about how we should create a Vision Zero task force within the city, a Vision Zero employee, because Ben can't do all of this. And even though there is a committee supporting him, we too don't have the manpower ourselves to drive many of these initiatives. So I love that you have three people supporting you and what their strengths are. And I really think that for us to be successful in the bike ped, we've got to expand the number of people within the city that are focused on bike ped and greenways. So maybe that's going to move up on the policy plan and projects recommendation list to flush that out and see what we can do about trying to get the city to look at that. And I know that there's a lot that we can do without that additional staff, but I think it would help. But I really appreciate that. Appreciate all that you've shared with us today. Does anyone else have any comments, questions for Shailene?
Yeah, this is Greg. And I used to work for the city, Shailene, and one of the things that we used to have, I don't know if it still exists, but recycling within the city itself, the city departments and buildings and so forth. Is that still happening? We used to have excuse me, we used to have staff come around and pick up the recycled paper and all the other cans and all that. Is that, I assume that that's still going on, but
it is, but it's about to be radically transformed. So we worked out a plan with PFM. Recycling right now is sort of by request or by kind of on the floor. We're going to change it so that instead of having a garbage bin in every office, we are going to have a recycle bin, and it will have a small garbage rider, so a little pocket for trash. And then each person is going to be responsible for emptying their own recycle bin and garbage pocket into a centralized place on the floor for housekeeping to pick up. And that way we have hopefully lower contamination, or we'll be able to watch where the contamination is and have departments responsible for their own contamination. And, you know, again, having that bigger recycle bin in front of you versus the trash.
okay, very good. I'm glad to hear that. That's because at least when I was working there, a lot of our work efforts involve paper, basically. You know, obviously we're gone pretty much to electronic and computer and so forth, but there's still a fair amount of paper that's generated anyway, and some of that stuff, I hate to see it get tossed into the absolute trash instead of being recycled. So I hope the city continues on in that regard.
Shailene, again, thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like, or I know you're very busy after seeing that presentation. If you need to go, that's okay too.
All right, thank you. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm always happy to meet with people and discuss further ideas. So
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have quorum now. Excellent. Let's go to item number 2, consideration of the June 12th minutes. Greg submitted a correction to a word. I have not looked that up. I know Ben received the same information from Greg, and he will be able to correct the one word. Again, I haven't gone back and looked at it, but are there any other edits, additions, corrections to the minutes?
I was present in June.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I'll change that. Yeah, I think one of the typos was that it was supposed to say incorporation of noted unread instead of elimination of noted unread, so that I'll make that change.
Right. Any other edits to the minutes? So is there a move to approve with those 2 edits?
I'll move.
I move approval. This is Greg.
I heard someone right before you.
That was me, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. Greg, you want a second?
I will do that. Yes.
Okay. All right. All that approve?
Aye, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Any nays? All right. Thank you. Minutes have been approved with the 2 edits. Moving on to the Old Salem Pedestrian Bicycle Friendly District. This was a topic that we covered last month. There were several edits and suggestions for changes. Those changes, I believe, have all been documented. I did send this out Saturday, and if there are those, if there's anyone that has not had a chance to review the edits that were made, we can pull those documents up real quick and take a look at them. So first, let me ask that. Do they need to be pulled up and we review them again? Not hearing that they need to be pulled up again. May I ask for approval of the support letter?
I'll move to approve the letter. The support letter.
Okay, a second.
I'll second it. This is Greg.
Thank you, Greg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Any opposed? Great.
I think we had Sharon drop off, so I don't know if we had quorum for that.
Brandon had joined us, so he gave us quorum
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So Sharon had to leave?
Yep, she just had to.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Great. I'm glad that letter has been approved. All right. The educational piece, there were a few changes to that. I did not highlight those in red, but hopefully everybody had a chance to look through that again. Any suggestion? Do I need to pull that document up?
I don't think so.
Okay, not hearing that I do. I move that, is there a movement? A recommendation to approve the educational piece.
I'll make that motion. This is
All
Greg.
right, a second?
I'll second.
Great. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Now the policy project and, policy project. Yes, committee can move
Plan and
forward.
project.
Thank you. Can move forward with that document. All right. Now to the bigger topic of today. The consideration of the recommendation of the Regional Flexible Funding Program and Prioritization. Ben, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that it's just the prioritization. The regional flexible funding was kind of like our different presentation from a while back that we went over. So this will just be for the prioritization comments.
Okay. All right. Great. So I sent 2 letters to you the second round. Since I sent those letters, I actually have revised them once again. It wasn't so much the wording, it was the order of the different topics. Because I went back and reviewed it and I thought, of all of these things that we're talking about in these letters, what is the most important to say to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and the second one is Division 9. And the Division 9 may have been a little bit of a surprise to you, but I received a letter, I guess because I have participated in other things, saying that they're doing as well. It's more of a state level prioritization, but you can focus in on the projects that are within your community. So it's a very similar process. Ask if you have time to go in and look at the map for Division 9, that you go in and also make comments on the projects that you like, because not everything is funded at the MPO level. Some decisions are made at a higher level, and who knows, maybe we'll get some divisional funding that can cover some bike ped projects. I know that the hope for that is very minimal, but if we don't tell them that we like these projects and want these projects, we will never get these projects. So it's kind of that hopeful side that you have to have. So anyway, I shared with you a link to that. After this meeting, I can share that link with you again. And so I would ask that you participate in that public comment for those projects if you would. I am going to pull up, I think I can do this, Ben. I'm going to pull up the letter as it has been rewritten. Windows, if I can figure out which one it is. Division 9, because I have a lot of things open on my desk. Okay. Tell me if you can see it or when you can see it.
Yep.
Okay. So the opening paragraph is still the same as what I sent to you. The letter then transitions into what was paragraph 5, which speaks to the prioritization process that has been used and where the points and dollars associated with those projects is aligned. So it talks about the fact that our MPO is assigning 2,400 points across 27 of the 35 projects that were out there. Those 27 projects that points have been applied to represent $3.3 billion. And I know it's not really about the money at this time, but that is part of what would happen if these 27 projects are prioritized. Of those 27 projects, 5 are for the western section of the Northern Beltway, 5 are for widening Highway 52, and 3 are for I-40. Those 13 projects of the 27 total $2.2 billion or 67% of the dollars. The funding is devoted primarily to reducing congestion on key interstates, improving freight access to industrial distribution centers and freight terminals. The prioritization does not promote equitable transportation options for low-income and minority communities and the aging population, and does not improve the last mile access, as Shailene had mentioned in her presentation. And no, I didn't ask her to read this. I then, after moving that the fifth paragraph up to the second paragraph, then went on to try to talk about that a little bit further. Prioritization of 67% of the funding to build new or widen existing interstates does not support the MPO's goals 3, 4, or 5. I didn't spell out what those goals are, but they can be quickly referenced from the internet. While we understand the economics of prioritizing these projects, it leaves a shortfall for improving health and safety of vulnerable road users. The 5-year average for fatalities in our MPO's region has increased 36% over the last 10 years. The 5-year average for serious injuries has increased 192% in that same time period. And the increase in fatalities and serious injuries of pedestrians, bicyclists has risen 131% over the past 10 years. If the MPO wishes to reverse this trend to meet its Vision Zero goal, more prioritized projects must focus on multimodal transportation infrastructure, not just vehicular. Safe road systems must be installed. Then I think that, I don't remember which paragraph that was, but I moved it up after the funding. It made more sense. And then I put that we staunchly advocate for projects prioritizing safety for all users, endorsing the incorporation of complete streets methodology, designing transportation facilities for pedestrians and bicycle riders. These projects, which should feature curbs, gutters, wide sidewalks, protected bike lanes at a minimum, are crucial in ensuring all user safety and inclusivity. The BPAM also supports using the complete streets methodology in all intersection and bridge upgrades, aiming to reconnect neighborhoods previously separated by thoroughfares, highways, and interstates. The BPAM supports prioritizing traffic calming and road diet projects in areas with moderate to high pedestrian foot traffic and bicycle riders. These areas include, but are not limited to, the streets that provide access to parks, greenways, schools, churches, libraries, senior centers, and retail centers. Right-through lanes should not be incorporated into areas with pedestrian and bicyclist facilities. Greg, I updated that maybe to spell out a little bit more where those right-through lanes should not be incorporated.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. The BPAM strongly recommends integrating future projects into the design of current ones. The forward-thinking approach could be exemplified. This means that I don't think it's there right now because they didn't say anything about it, but by incorporating the Fiddler's Creek Greenway Trail into the design of the prioritized NC 109 project, because the Fiddler's Creek Greenway actually intersects with and travels alongside North Carolina 109 for a small section. So if they're going to upgrade 109, that should be part of the design. This would ensure that projects are practical in the present and lay the groundwork for future developments. The BPAM appreciates and supports the WSU MPO's inclusion of the complete streets methodology for the Y lines of the Highway 52 lane widening projects. We ask that the same evaluation be considered for the Northern Beltway Y lines. The committee supports the MPO prioritizing the rail line projects connecting Winston-Salem to Greensboro and Charlotte. These two projects play a significant role in supporting the multimodal transportation needs of the future, aligning with the MPO's goal 5 to support transportation for tomorrow. If North Carolina wants to meet their climate goals, mass transit opportunities must be provided to the largest population centers in the state. And then there is a list of the prioritized projects that have complete streets in them. And the rail projects that I believe our entire committee would support. So let's just pull up the list of those projects real quick. Let's see. Need to make this a little bigger. There. So Group A are the rail projects, and those are pretty self-explanatory. Group B, there are 8 listed, which includes the Jonestown Road bridge widening. It includes the I-40 Stratford Road, with the suggestion that they also consider complete streets in that upgrade to that intersection, because if you look at the aerial map, you actually can see foot traffic goes through there because there's a Warren pathway. The spot ID 185121 for US 158 and 801, this is in the Bermuda Run area. It's a complete streets. The next 3 that are listed, and I can, Greg, I didn't have time, but go identify what those locations are. All 3 are identified to be complete street designs, so supporting those. The NC 66, it also suggests or says that they're going to use complete streets for updating that. And the NC 109 with the Fiddler's Creek Greenway. So are there other projects that you think should be listed that are not listed? Would be my first question that we're supporting. Okay, not hearing any. We'll leave that list alone. Let's go back to the letter. What edits do you have? I know it's not perfect.
I mean, I feel like we could probably nitpick tiny little things, but I always appreciate Greg's thorough editing. And if he's weighed in, I don't disagree with anything he had suggested. And I think this letter is excellent. It's both got a good narrative piece that kind of encompasses the philosophy of this group. And I think what a lot of us agree to as being things that need to be prioritized, mainly complete streets methodology, which is not always explicitly in there. And then the listing of projects is, I mean, there's a lot on there. And I think the ones that are called out are appropriate. So I really appreciate all the work on this. I think it's really good.
Thank you, Amy. Any other comments? Not hearing any. Yay. Is there a movement to approve this and submit it to the Transportation Advisory Committee with the knowledge that I'm going to provide locations for those 3 projects that just have spot IDs listed?
I think it's about as well as you can write it. So I think you've done a great job, Carol.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any opposed, it is unanimously approved. Thank you. All right. Well, that was easier than I thought. All right. Let's move on to the Division 9 document.
Carol, just as a matter of procedure, you've got approval from the committee. It'll just be a matter of you as our chair formally signing it, because it needs to be submitted by the 15th, which is next Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
And Hunter, do you want that submitted to you?
Yes, please. I'll be ready to receive it, and I'll make sure that it gets incorporated in the public comment packet. We'll also kind of give it its own kind of separate categorization too, because this is a recommendation from a committee. So to me, it holds a little bit of a different weight than just a single person, right, writing a comment. So we have it broken up into different categories. And what we will do is we will have kind of a separate tab that says recommendations from committees. And we will make sure that attention is drawn specifically to the comments here. Thanks for all your work on this too.
Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate that.
Hunter,
All right, I'm gonna.
Carol, can we ask Hunter if he has any just general feedback on that? Like how many people showed up to the public input and how many comments have you received? Like how is that going? Is the public engaging in this process pretty well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's it's been a lot more than we're accustomed to as the MPO. We have gotten over 300 comments. It's probably going to hit the 400 marker by the time the public comment period wraps up, if not 400, pretty close. We've had over 1,000 interactions on our map, and by interactions I mean likes and dislikes towards a project. So that's been really reassuring. And just to kind of give you an idea of the meeting, I know you showed up, I'd say somewhere in the middle of that meeting, but at the end of the day, we had 81 folks show up to that meeting, which was great. And I will say this, a big driver was rail. The two rail projects that are proposed there are 230, 505 to Greensboro and 509 to Charlotte. And yeah, those were big draws. Even if that particular mode of transportation, doesn't have the best shot through the prioritization process as it is, us as an MPO putting our points towards those projects, and we are making recommendations to put points towards both of those projects now because of such big feedback from the public on those projects. It's important for us as an MPO to signify that we support those projects, even if our points don't give it the score that it needs, to get funded through prioritization. So just wanted to give that little update because I know rail is of interest to this group, and really good public comments so far. And, the projects that the BPMAC has endorsed here today, generally speaking, I would say that those are some of the most popular projects that we've seen just off the top of my head. It's the rail projects. We've got a lot of feedback from Town of Bermuda Run on 184-620 to incorporate bike lanes and sidewalks. And then, of course, the not traffic calming, but road diet and partial road widening in some parts of US 158, H230557 outside of Tanglewood, where it would construct those two sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides. That project, for lack of a better term, is a hit. So, yes, that would be how I would wrap up my summary of the comments we've gotten and the projects that we're seeing support from on the public.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That is fantastic, Hunter. I'm very happy to hear the participation. That does far exceed what we were able to accomplish, even with all our efforts. So congratulations to your staff. I'm very, very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to a second to find it and pull it up. Okay, let me know when you can see it.
I can see it.
All right. I'm gonna, same thing on this letter as the other one, kind of a reshuffle of the paragraphs. So the opening paragraph did not change at all. It talks to the NCDOT's vision of being a global leader in providing innovative transportation solutions and their mission of connecting people, products, places safely and efficiently with customer focus, accountability, and environmental sensitivity to enhance the economy and vitality of North Carolina. So there's their vision, there's their mission. So then why not, continue following along those lines? So the BPAM staunchly advocates for projects prioritizing all users' safety and fully supports the NCDOT's goal of making transportation safer /Vision Zero. That's their goal. The 2024 North Carolina Strategic Highway Safety Plan's goal is to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by half by 2035, moving towards zero by 2050. Based on a 5-year rolling average, traffic-related fatalities have increased by nearly 21%. In that report, they did not give the increase in serious injuries. You can see it in the graph, but I didn't have time to calculate it. So I just put in the traffic fatalities as they did in their report. This increasing trend must be reversed. However, if prioritized and most of the funding remains focused on building new or widening existing interstate, fatalities and serious injuries will continue to increase. Our committee is acutely aware of the challenges of the North Carolina Strategic Transportation Investment Law poses, which has limited funding for bicycle and pedestrian projects since 2013. This restriction hinders the development of safer and more accessible transportation options and infrastructure for bicyclists, pedestrians, and users of personal mobility devices in our city and across the state. STIP Prioritization 6 was canceled in 2021, and we understand that there is the possibility of no funding at the division needs. Let me start over again, that there is a possibility that there may not be division needs funding for STIP Prioritization 7. With no funding for standalone bicycle pedestrian projects, the NCDOT will be unable to meet its established vision, mission, and goals. BPAM asks that the NCDOT fully include safe, active transportation infrastructure and provide points to roadway projects with the most safety improving elements. To improve safety for all users, BPAM endorses incorporating the Complete Streets methodology in the design of transportation facilities with pedestrians and bicycle riders. Projects that include streets providing access to parks, and this was said in the last one. Complete street design should feature curbs, again said in the last one, crucial in ensuring all users' safety and inclusivity. BPAM supports using the Complete Streets methodology in all interstate bridge upgrades. I won't go on that one. So ending this one, because I don't think as much detail was needed as the MPO, the BPAM fully supports the prioritization of the following projects found in the NCDOT 2026 to 2035 State Transportation Improvement Program Prioritization 7 survey. All bicycle plus pedestrian projects listed for Forsyth County. So when you go into the map to do the likes and dislikes, there you can go over in the right-hand side and in the legends, click on the projects to see projects specific to those categories. And that particular category is bicycle and pedestrian. So instead of listing all of those projects listed under that legend, I simplified it by saying all bicycle plus pedestrian projects listed for Forsyth County. Number 2, the WISTA listed projects, which Shailene said, you know, let's put solar panels on these bus shelters. Well, if you go in there and look at the WISTA projects, you have to blow the map up because 3 of them kind of rest on top of each other. But there's 3 in there. 1 is for additional bus shelters. 1 is for solar panels on bus shelters. And the 3rd one is to replace the HVAC system for the Clark Campbell Transportation Center and some other upgrades. So I listed that we would support that. I listed the rail projects as projects we would support. And when you click on, again, each one of these are different legends you can pick. In the highway projects, there are several highway projects in there that some of those were not on the MPO's list. And I guess because they were not in your top 35, Hunter.
Yeah, so I'll explain that real quick. That's a great point. So some of those are what we would consider division needs highway projects or division needs roadway projects. So just like NCDOT or Division 9 is doing their public comment period for all of the projects, including bicycle and pedestrian projects, there are also, like there are division needs bike ped projects, division needs roadway projects, that the MPO will hold a public comment period on in the fall. What we're waiting to see is which of our regional impact projects that we put points towards score high enough to get funding. The ones that don't score high enough to get funding will then cascade down and be included with that pool of those smaller roadway projects. So as an example, there's probably, a roadway improvement on Country Club Road. Country Club Road is called secondary route in the NCDOT system. So it's not a US highway. It's not an NC highway. And so it's not eligible for regional impact funds. They'd be eligible for division funds. So these comments that you're giving on the roadway projects here are at the division needs level. And if you have similar comments for us as an MPO, we'll definitely accept those in the fall. Because NCDOT is doing this all as kind of one shot, that explains the difference there.
Okay, thank you. So again, I think it's important that people come out and make comments on these. I did attend the public session that Division 9 held last night. I was commenting before many of you joined that Hunter and I were both commenting that we found it very interesting that a lot of people came from Rowan County to speak on some projects that are going on down there. We don't know anything about those projects or why people were so energized and passionate that showed up, but it was interesting to see the number of people that came, that drove that distance to provide their public comments last night. Okay, that was an aside, sorry. Back over to the letter. We are grateful for the opportunity to participate in the public comments on funding prioritization. So here is the letter. Questions, comments, edits. Do we wish to submit a letter to Division 9?
I think the letter's good. I'm a fan of this committee putting forward our perspectives as often as possible, and we can get feedback on that, right? How well is this received? What topics are they most interested in hearing from us? Do we go more detailed? Do we whatever? But I think this is great as a first shot out to them, and happy to get their feedback. Oh, Latricia needs to jump off, so if we need to vote, we probably need to vote.
Okay.
Really.
All right.
I just read her.
Not hearing any edits, questions, or comments. Do I hear a move to approve?
I would motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Great. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Latricia. Anyone not approve? Not hearing any. This letter is approved and will be submitted. Great.
Have
Thank
a great
you
day,
so much.
everyone. I'm sorry.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Latricia.
Latricia. Okay. Moving on to the agenda. Great. There are, did I pull up the right one? There are no updates for policy plan project, no updates for education and outreach, no updates for, well, there was education. Michael, can you share the Reagan High School?
Yeah, so Oliver was able to attend the driver's ed course and provide a great educational piece for the students there. It was well received and active participation from the students. The coach or the instructor from Reagan, he was very complimentary about how it all went and kind of pushed it out to the overall supervisor of all the driver's ed courses in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools. Don't know where that's gone just yet, but I'm sure just a ringing endorsement from one of his instructors goes a long way. So hopefully we'll continue that at Reagan High School with future classes and expand on to other further classes or further schools. And hopefully outside, even with Salem Forsyth County, we're working on other angles with Forsyth Tech and also Wake Forest. I'm trying to get our foot in the door there as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. And I apologize. I forgot in our last planning meeting with Amy and Ben, we had talked about taking items 6, 7, and 8 off of this agenda and moving it to the consent agenda to try to keep our meetings a little shorter. And I forgot to pull those off. Michael, thank you for not only submitting it for the consent agenda, but also speaking to it today.
Absolutely.
And Amy, I don't think that there were any updates from the advocacy partnership. Yeah. So that brings us to the Great Trails State Conference. I wanted to have just a few minutes to see if we have willing volunteers to be trail leaders or bike leaders, walk leaders for the conference when it's here in September. I definitely would love to do the walk around for the conference.
It looks like I might be doing the bike ride. I've got a meeting with Palmer later today, and we're going to discuss the NCC providing bikes, making bikes available, maybe up to 15 bikes available for folks at the conference that don't have theirs with them to attend. So I'll know more about that after we meet.
Okay.
Jose, will that cover bikes for both the mountain biking and the kind of greenway, whatever route, or are you more specifically to a greenway bike ride?
It sounds like more greenway. She was suggesting, she had kind of referenced the bike share bikes. And I told her, I don't know if we've got enough of those that are in good working order to use, but we can definitely provide some bikes. But it sounded like she was wanting to kind of base from the conference is at the Benton Convention Center. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. So she was thinking maybe have it stationed there and then access. That's one thing we haven't really discussed, but I would imagine she's probably thinking more of the urban setting, greenway and stuff. So. But Amy, at the same time, I can still make mountain bikes available. I mean, I can provide whatever we have at the time. I know that a lot our bike programs in the schools will be operating, so I probably will be limited on what we have. But we do have a lot of bikes and a variety of things, and we're happy to loan those out.
Yeah, no, you guys have such a great resource there. It just might be something to make sure Palmer, whoever organizing, knows that if someone wants to sign up for the mountain biking whatever experience thing and they don't have a bike, that maybe there's a side note that says reach out to us and you guys can do something. But most people, I mean, if you're into mountain biking, you're going to have your own bike probably that's tailored to you. And I'm sure Carol, someone from FORBA, the Forsyth Off-Road Bicycle Association, can help facilitate the mountain biking thing. I just don't know who that will be.
Okay, thank you. Brandon, I know that you're a runner, and I was wondering if you could be a volunteer for the trail run. And Brandon, if you're trying to speak, you're on mute. All right, I'll reach out to Brandon and see if he can be a leader for the trail run. If not, maybe we can ask Jeff Fansler. I got smiles from 2 people or 3 because I've learned that Jeff is a big runner. So, all right. And if anyone wants to help me with the walk, I welcome your help. So, okay. Any other topics? Oh, I wanted to remind everyone to make sure that you read the consent agenda because we will not be going over that. It does speak to things that have been accomplished. It speaks to what is in process and what is coming up. So it's important that we follow that consent agenda. there's only so much that we can cover in an hour and a half once a month. So we're trying to do the best we can and bring guest speakers in to keep us energized and thinking about things that we might be missing. And today's guest speaker, Shailene, was great. So I'm very happy that we were able to organize that. Thank you, Ben. Are there any other topics that we need to bring forth, mention? Amy, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Ben, real quick on that wayfinding signage. It might be pregnancy brain, but I was not following your update. The estimated implementation for the wayfinding signage is approximately 8 months from today when they'll all be done, or is that when they're starting?
That's probably more likely when they'll start.
Okay.
So
And
right now, the funding for we receive funding through the carbon mitigation and reduction programs. So right now that funding is working its way through NCDOT getting approved.
Okay.
And then once it approves, what we'll do is we'll create an RFP to signage manufacturers and get bids for manufacturing the signs, and it will be a manufacturing and installation contract.
What
So
is our internal city signage department not able to do those kinds of signs?
no, they're too complicated for our internal
Do you have,
department. So
that we ever saw pictures or anything of what that would look like? Do you have any renderings that at some point you could share with the committee?
yeah, I can. Yeah, I think those were
maybe just in the next consent agenda, a few pictures or something.
Yeah, yep, for sure I can.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. I'm so excited that those are coming. So thank you for all the work on that.
Yeah, and we're gonna incorporate them into the design of the Long Branch Trail extension too. So that'll be great.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Amy. Hearing the motion and second of adjournment, thank you all for being here. Stay cool and stay safe. And Amy, later this month, we hope to hear some great news from you.
Yeah, hopefully I will have a baby by the next time we meet. So.
Well, we're all wishing for the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you all in a month, if not before.
See you then.
See you, everybody.